You are listening to the Central Indiana Sports Reports, episode 124.4, Why IU Will Beat Notre Dame, with Michelle Garmon and Grant Shouse. To be clear, the Central Indiana Sports Report is not saying that IU will beat Notre Dame. So, Irish fans, direct your ire at Grant Shouse and Michelle Garmon. Here they are.
You're listening to the Central Indiana Sports Report with your host, Greg Mengelt.
I'm here with Grant Shouse and Michelle Garmon. I have one question, and I'm just going to let them go. Why can IU beat Notre Dame on Friday night?
The biggest key for Indiana tomorrow, from what I've seen, is they're going to have to stop the run. I mean, Notre Dame's running backs are just they're so athletic. They're all over the field. That the run defense is going to have to show up tomorrow night. And Indiana, who hasn't played in now what will be almost 2 or 3 weeks, is probably it's. I mean, same with Notre Dame. They're probably both itching to play. I think it's going to be just a great game up there. I'm looking for to me as an IU fan, the outcome it matters. I want Indiana to win, but I think if Indiana's got to look at some of the bright sides. If they don't, you rise from I hate to say it, but you rise from the depths of hell of college football, where you're
That's what it was.
yeah, literally. They have the most losses in the history of any Division I program in the country, and you go 9-27 the last 3 years, and in 1 year, just hiring one guy, making one coaching change, completely flips the culture.
Well,
It motivates the fan base, and it gives you national notice.
yeah, but to be fair, it wasn't just one coach. They hired a head coach who brought a ton of his staff with him, and I've said all along that's why they were so successful. I think they still would have made the turn had Signetti come, but if he hadn't been able to bring
Probably.
both his top defensive coaches and his top offensive coaches with him, I don't know that it's this major of a turnaround. But he
I
was able
think
to bring his coaches who know his system. He didn't have to tell his coaches what he wants, how he likes to coach, what systems he likes. He brought that with him. And so he still got to play manager. And as for as poor as I use football team was, that made it great because those coaches could go to work looking at evaluating the talent and seeing what they needed to do to teach certain players. And Signetti then could go out and get and hit the portal and get players in to also fit, to fit the system. So yes, it was
the,
a great coaching hire, but I still say that the big reason for that success is because it was Signetti and staff.
and it's always about the team too. The team goes first. It's we before me, but I think you're right from the standpoint of, regardless of who they hired, I think you're right. They would have made a turn. And here's the thing is what I think people now are kind of forgetting about that, they weren't thinking about when Indiana was 5-0 is, and now that they're in the playoff is that they could have hired, picks. They could have hired Barry Odom last year instead of Purdue getting him this offseason. They could have hired him. I'm just using him for example,
Right.
but they could have hired him. And if he came in and went 7-5 and was in a bowl game,
Good point.
Indiana fans are still, excited. They're still. I mean, Indiana 7-5. I mean, that's a great season. This is the season. If they go 7-5, we're going to be talking about for a long time. But the fact that you can come in and flip it right away and go 11-1 and make the first ever 12-team college football playoff is just it truly is unbelievable. And I don't know if they're I don't know if they're a Cinderella. I don't think they are. I think the guys they have, and like Michelle said, with the coaching staff they have, they belong here. There's no question about it. And I may be eating my words this time tomorrow night, but they belong
Oh,
in my opinion.
yeah, I agree. They've done what they're. I get tired of hearing people say, "Well, who's a ranked team? Who did Indiana, who did Indiana beat?"
Yeah,
Here's the
don't even
question:
get me
Who
started.
did Indiana lose to? Georgia. Who did you lose to?
We're here to get you started, Grant.
Yeah, Alabama.
Yeah,
Alabama? Who did you lose to?
yeah.
That's the key is who these people lost to. It's and Indiana did, and who Indiana lost to. Here's
And
what.
again, it goes back to, and Signetti said it. If Indiana had the Alabama logo, they had Michigan, Ohio State's logo, they would, this wouldn't even be a question. Nobody would even be thinking about it. If they had the Notre Dame logo, nobody would even be thinking about it because they'd be 11-1. And
Yep.
then again, it doesn't matter. It's like look at Michigan from last year, the team that won the national championship. Who they beat? Who was their non-conference? Maybe just a slightly bit better than Indiana. Yeah, they beat Ohio State.
People who
Okay, and they
point out
still
the
walked
non-conference
through it and won the
schedule have
national championship.
Grant.
What'd you say?
People who point out the non-conference schedule have a point, but it was a non-conference schedule for a program that wasn't very good.
Well, it was, but here's the thing.
But in
Exactly.
the Big Ten, if you lose one game in the Big Ten, you are an elite team.
Right. But here's the thing with the non-conference schedule. Signetti had nothing to do with that. That was, I mean,
Yeah,
That's what I'm
Allen
saying.
yeah. That
changed
that
that.
was
That was,
that was scheduled years in advance. I know
Yep.
they took Louisville off the schedule and put on Charlotte, but
and
other than that, that was all scheduled years in
well, and that
advance.
was Allen's doing from last year to replace Louisville. Here's why Indiana can beat Notre Dame. They have the number one ranked defense against the run. Um, and although Notre Dame's running back tandem is going to be, I think, the best tandem that IU has seen. However,
Probably.
I'm not so sure how healthy Love is. If Love, he was
Yeah.
wearing a bulky knee brace in practice. Somebody on Twitter showed a short clip, and he couldn't get that leg up, and I think he's that explosive power runner, and if he's lost some of that and can't make the cuts he can make, then that's advantageous. So the keys, for Indiana are really going to be Kamara and number 8 is that West. Anyway, their defensive line. I can Indiana's defensive line win the line of scrimmage. The same thing for IU's offensive line. They're going to have to be able to keep the pressure off of Rourke because Notre Dame has what I consider still one of the best secondary, one of the top 5 secondaries in all of college football, and had they not lost the one defensive back to the rest of the season for injuries, it would be the best defensive back secondary. So they have to they're going to have to protect Rourke enough that he can make good reads because Notre Dame secondary is good enough that if you make a bad read or forced into something, they'll read it and react. But at the same
Thing
time,
is, Notre Dame's good. I mean,
but
yeah, they lost to Northern Illinois, but you know, look at them now. I mean, they haven't had any really wrongdoing since.
right,
They
but here,
beat everybody they're supposed to beat,
right, but here's the other
and
thing. But
they
IU,
belong in the college football playoff. No question about it.
yeah, IU can win though because I think when you look at I go position by position quarterback when it comes to throwing the football. I Rourke is ahead when it comes to running. Leonard's
No
ahead,
question.
and if it is cold, and it's like Signetti said earlier, he really hopes it snows. People forget Rourke is from Canada. I mean, he's used
Yeah.
to the cold and all that.
Yep.
And I thought against Purdue, his thumb is now 100% healthy. And
Oh yeah.
so I think, and
And I'm
I
not so sure how healthy he really was and that thumb was feeling against Ohio State.
right, and you could tell it was much better against Purdue because I thought up until after that in that first series against Purdue, he struggled a little bit, but after he made a couple throws and realized the thumb was still not 100%, but close to 90. I think some of his sacks that he took, I do think it was pressure. And don't get me wrong, but I mean, we saw him avoid pressure earlier in the year. I think it was he knew that thumb. was not real good, so he knew he was going to not be able to put some maybe as much heat or spin on the ball, and I don't think he wanted to make a costly mistake like an interception, and I think that was huge for him. So I think sometimes he took sacks. People forget though, IU, we can talk about Notre Dame's running back tandem. I think IU's got a pretty good one in Ellison and Lawton. I mean, they are just they're really good. And IU's got better receiving core. Um, Tight
Yeah.
ends. I'll say they're even on tight ends. Notre Dame probably maybe has more depth at tight end, overall as far as pass catching. But Horton is really good. Linebackers. I don't get me wrong. Jack Kaiser, great kids.
Yeah.
COVID year doing
Great
that.
player.
But Eric Fisher's better. And
Aiden Fisher, you mean?
yeah, oh yes, Aiden
Yeah.
Fisher. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah.
Aiden
He
Fisher is
100% is
better.
better.
And
And
Trey,
so is Jalen Walker.
well, that's what I was getting to say. And Walker is so far underrated. And I just think it is going to be a great. I think it's going to be a good game. And here's my thing. Everybody, oh, Ohio State, look what they did. Okay, why can Notre Dame learn from a bad loss at home to Northern Illinois to do better, but IU can't learn from a loss on the road at Ohio State and take that what they learned into Notre
Yeah.
Dame.
Yeah.
And
And the thing is I think Signetti had a point the day before the selection show is that, why is Indiana really not being considered to host the playoff game? Why are they really not? Why is that not? And maybe you have the answer, but I mean, I I agree with him.
yeah,
Notre Dame loses at home to Northern Illinois. Indiana loses on the road against number 2 Ohio State.
Crazy.
Here's the thing with Ohio State is I wouldn't be at all shocked with them losing to Oregon and losing to Michigan. I still wouldn't be at all shocked if they don't go through it all and have a chance to win the whole thing.
Me neither.
yeah, yes, they're capable of that. Here's the other thing. Here's another reason I'm going to say is because not only did IU hire Signetti and he's the right fit and they did the right thing to extend him, but he's embraced Indiana. He's embraced everything. I don't know if you saw it, but Monday he went into the barber shop to get a haircut. And he said, I want the Jimmy Chitwood haircut. Now, with the Hoosiers, with that reference, I mean, I just find that, I think that is pretty
Endearing.
endearing and pretty great that he, the underdogs, from the movie Hoosiers, and he knows that and everything. And he also said, I saw where he said that, um, what they did learn from the Ohio State game was he said they went to a silent count. He said we will never do that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
The center couldn't hear.
right, the center couldn't. Yeah, and they have to, and it cut back on making those adjustments for lanes and blocking and everything. And I think IU learned from Ohio State. I think they learned from that environment. Here's the other thing: the Notre Dame environment's not going to be quite as much because there's Notre Dame Stadium seats what 40,000, 50,000 less than the Horseshoe.
Oh yeah. And the thing is that um there's going to be a lot of Indiana fans.
Yeah, there are, and I think Notre Dame is going to actually be surprised, and it's been fun to watch, and I love watching the people, the Twitter people, the podcasters that follow these teams and
Mhm.
doing some of their Twitter battles, and just even the Stan account, that really follow. It's been really fun, and but to insinuate the Indiana students and alumni are poor is just not knowing. I think that's almost like an elitist mentality. I don't think they realize just how wide a fan base or how wide an alumni base Indiana University has.
100%. Yeah. And
And
and there's a lot of alumni that live in Chicago, which is an hour drive. You can spit on Notre Dame from Chicago pretty much that
well,
are going to make the trek over there. And I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be a sea of red, but it could be a a mirage of red,
Well, there's going to be
of cream and crimson there.
there's going to be a sea of
Notre
red.
Dame
Even
Stadium.
there's going to be a sea of red, even if they can't get tickets that are going to be up there for tailgate and everything, and to help that. And I saw a tweet last night from somebody that was talking about they were flying in from Fort Lauderdale, and I forget if they were landing in Indy or Chicago and then driving to South Bend just for the just for the football game. So if you're spending that kind of money, I mean that's just. I know Notre Dame alumni do it because I don't know that they have. That's the whole thing. I don't know that Notre Dame has a lot of alumni that are actually in the state of Indiana, stay in the state of Indiana.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I do think they will be surprised. You know, it's gonna come down to it's gonna and coaching is gonna be a key. And I think Signetti
Coaching always is key,
yes, and I think
no matter
Signetti
what.
and his staff are good, and I think they do a good job of making adjustments in game for the most part. I think Marcus Freeman. I thought he was a good hire. My nephew likes Notre Dame, and he's always been kind of on the fence with Freeman. He's not, you know, not sure. Although Zach is like, I don't know
Thing is,
who I'm gonna root
there's
for
going to be
tomorrow.
a lot of people. Yeah, like you just said it. There's going to be a lot of people who are not going to know who to root for tomorrow.
Thank you so much to Grant and Michelle for doing that. Always love having IU content on the Central Indiana Sports Report. And thank you for listening. If you like what you heard, please like, subscribe, or follow so you don't miss a single segment. We're on YouTube now. By the way, just search Central Indiana Sports Report. Please subscribe and tell a friend. Central Indiana Sports Report is a product of ITG Media, and I love Susie.